episode of the Show Before the Show podcast, the official podcast of minor league baseball. We are back 11 days ahead of the Major League Baseball trade deadline. Minor league races continue to heat up all across the minor league landscape. My name is Tyler Mon, along with Sam Dykstra in New York City. It's an old school episode today. It's just me and you for segment numero uno, and Benjamin Hill joins us later.
Yeah, what year is it? 2018? It feels like 2018.
It's a much
great things are ahead
world.
For all of us. This decade's going to end. Yeah. I can't wait to see what comes in the new decade.
It's going to be terrific. Once 2020 comes along, that's our year, buddy. That's everybody's year. Well, thanks for hanging out with us on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. You can get in touch with us, podcast at MILB.com, with any of your questions, your thoughts, your comments about the minor league baseball season, and anything else minor league baseball related. And let's get into it. We are very excited about our guest on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. We're going to tease that coming up for you here in a little bit. But we're also, as noted just a little while ago, coming up on the Major League Baseball trade deadline. The draft now in the rear view mirror. We've got some signings already from top prospects who have inked their deals, Paul Skeens included. So we'll talk about that a little bit. But this is a fun time of year. This is also a time of year, Sam, that comes with a little bit of anxiety for players. If you're a top prospect and your team is contending, or your team is out of it and is looking to make some sort of moves for 2024 and beyond, this is a time of year that comes with a little bit of unspoken electricity in clubhouses and dugouts, and not necessarily the easiest of that type of energy, but always a very interesting time of year around late July.
Yeah, I mean, Hug Watch is very much on in clubhouses, both at the major league level and the minor league level. If you're a prospect for a contending team, we've heard this before from players of like, hey, it's weird not knowing if you're going to get a tap on the shoulder and be like, hey, you're going elsewhere, or if you have a phone call that's coming saying like, hey, we traded you to X team. And that can be difficult for prospects for sure, because in many cases, that's the only team you've ever known. And you get traded. And it's one of my favorite questions to ask guys after that is like, do you see it as another team wanted to acquire you, or that a team traded you away? And in most cases, they'll say it's nice to be wanted, because they could take anybody in a trade. Not anybody, obviously, but there's a bunch of options, and you were the one they picked. You were the one they singled out and said, I want you in this trade, which is nice to feel wanted in that way. But still, you got to pack up everything, especially if you're in the minor leagues and like you're on the road. You got to call folks and just say like, hey, can you pack up my apartment? And now I'm going to Fort Wayne, or now I'm going to Hillsboro, Oregon, or what have you. Like, it can be really difficult. So it's exciting from a fan perspective. I remember getting really excited by the trade deadline. I mean, I still am, because we're sitting here now. There hasn't really been a blockbuster to go down yet, and that could happen at any moment. But from a player perspective, yeah, there's a little bit of that anxiety. Even if you're a major leaguer and you could be traded to a contender and you want to go towards a winner, it's still a big life change. So it's kind of a crazy time of year.
It's a crazy time of year, and like you said, I mean, it is fraught with all kinds of different emotions for guys who find themselves at the center of these things. I remember my first season in the minor leagues in 2009, being around a Pirates prospect, or at the time, an Atlanta prospect who was traded to the Pirates as part of a deal in 2009, named Jeff Locke. And Jeff Locke played, I think, 7 big league seasons. But it was a guy who was part of a deal that sent him from one franchise to another. This is the type of deal in 2009. Here, talk about remembering some guys. Jeff Locke was traded by Atlanta with Gorkys Hernandez and Charlie Morton to the Pittsburgh Pirates for Nate McLouth. Remember Nate McLouth?
Wow, there you go. I mean, Charlie Morton's still around.
Charlie Morton's he's still doing it. And I think Gorkys Hernandez was still playing overseas as of, I want to say he was in. Now I'll have to look this up and see if I remember this correctly or not. But I do remember talking to Jeff Locke in the moments after he had been traded. The team was on the road. He came back to get his stuff in Myrtle Beach. And he said, I mean, the first thing you think is like, man, this team doesn't want me anymore. And it's a team that drafted you. It's a team that's developed you. And that's heartbreaking. But then you do start thinking about it. from the standpoint of, oh, there's another team that does want me. And that's really cool. And juggling all of those things when you're in your, early 20s in most cases for so many of these guys, you're still a teenager in some cases for other players. That's a heavy weight to feel, but it is an exciting time for players across the baseball spectrum, at least once you can get past the shock of, oh, I've been traded.
Yeah, I mean, even a more recent example, we heard a story about this last year about James Wood getting traded in the Juan Soto blockbuster. And that was such a crazy day. I remember it because I do the Padres top 30. So you went throughout that entire day hearing Juan Soto to the Dodgers. That was the big rumor, but the Padres were kind of in the mix, and then they pulled the trigger. I think the story that we heard was that he heard on the bus. Like, they were on the bus to another game. It's not like you just get dropped off and you can go the other direction. Although Josh Jackson's going to tell a story similar to that decades ago. That's a tease for Ghosts of the Minors later. But in the modern day, you don't just get off the bus, you stay on the bus. And then just like, those were guys he got really close to, especially Jackson Merrill. Those guys were, very close because of how good they were. They came in the same draft. And then to find out he was traded, sounds like it was a very difficult moment. Now, James Wood is doing very well in the national system, kind of a consensus top 5 prospect in the game. But yeah, it's even the big ones who are moved in blockbusters like that and become a centerpiece, that it still affects them.
Well, and the other thing that's wild too is that we are in an era now where, formerly 15, 20, much less, 40, 50, 80 years ago, you don't really hear about trades from being called into the office and having somebody sit you down and explain it to you. You hear about it on Twitter, or you get a push notification, or whatever it is. So many of these guys are finding out in ways that are kind of shocking. I mean, if you just logged onto the internet and you found out that you had been traded from your job to an entirely different company, that would be a little bit stunning. But that does happen a lot these days. And it is a very delicate kind of area to try to navigate.
Yeah, in an ideal world, that wouldn't happen. And like in most, I don't want to say in most cases, but like you would hope, even in this day and age of social media and push notifications, like you say, that you would hear from your agent, or you would hear from your farm director or the GM that's acquiring you. Like, that's the professional way to go about this. But not every prospect is going to find out that way. That's just the truth of the matter. Like, sometimes information flies very quickly. And it flies to a journalist just as quickly as it flies to your farm director or to your agent. So yeah, it's kind of a crazy time we live in, but hopefully everybody finds out through the proper channels. Knock on wood. I don't think that's going to happen, but that's our hope anyways.
Well, there are many potential deals this has the feel of a year where we're going to see all kinds of crazy trades, and not just because potentially the biggest name in baseball, the most talented player in baseball could be on the trade block, and that's Shohei Ohtani. Sam, do you have an idea of trade pieces, top prospects who could make sense to be moving in a different direction? And the elephant in the room, is a Shohei Ohtani deal actually possible?
I mean, technically, yes, but I think a lot of people are getting wrapped up in like, oh, this is a rental for Shohei Ohtani. He's a free agent in the offseason. Teams are like, or fans anyways, are like, you're only getting him for a few months. You don't want to overpay for a rental, but you are getting 2 players in one. You're not just getting a rental. You're getting essentially like 2 guys, one guy you can put in the lineup, one guy you can put in the rotation. And he's really, really good at both. I mean, we're talking, Aaron Judge was even acknowledging the other day, his AL record might go away because of Ohtani. So it's really insane.
You're trying to trade essentially for maybe the best hitter in baseball and a guy who could be, 2008 Brewers CC Sabathia for the rest of the season on the mound also. Yeah. So it's, this is certainly not your standard quote unquote rental deal at the end.
Right. Yeah. It's going to take, I don't want to say like a Juan Soto-esque deal, because that involved multiple years of control and all that. And that was multiple major leaguers, CJ Abrams and Mackenzie Gore, and then really good prospects below that too. I don't think it's going to be quite that, but it's going to hurt. It's not going to be one of those deals where it's just like, oh, it's 2 good prospects and that's it. It's going to really deplete a system. It's going to hurt. So when you start to look at like who has the prospects to pull that off, the Dodgers immediately come to mind because they are just so deep right now on our top 100. They have 8. top 100 prospects, which is most in baseball, tied with the Orioles. The Orioles would also make a lot of sense. Like, it would be fascinating to see the Orioles cash their chips on Shohei Ohtani. Like, we've been long wondering, are they going to turn the corner? And so like it would be really interesting to see them try to go for Ohtani, trade a lot of those position players that they have who are basically major league ready. So it would satisfy an ability for the Angels, because it sounds like if they're going to trade Ohtani, they don't want to really miss a beat. They don't want to just be like, all right, this is the start of our rebuild, when you have Anthony Rendon for multiple years, even though he hasn't been great. Mike Trout, who's currently injured, but still, when healthy, a top 5 player in baseball. They don't want to just be kickstarting a rebuild with this trade. They want multiple guys who can contribute right away or be close to contributing right away. So that would be fascinating to see the Orioles try to pull that off. I don't think it's going to happen. And we're already hearing that like Artie Moreno, who is like looming over this entire deal, right? The owner of the Angels, doesn't want to trade to the Dodgers because they're crosstown rivals. I put that
quote unquote.
Yeah. Not even in the same county, but that's neither here nor there. The other local team, like, he doesn't want to see Ohtani thrive over there. Ohtani very well might sign with the Dodgers.
I was going to say, I got bad news for Artie Moreno, because there's your quote unquote crosstown rival has been saving up the bank to back up a Brinks truck to Shohei Ohtani's house or compound at some point over this offseason.
Yeah, right. It I don't know. We'll see. Like, the Dodgers could definitely make a Godfather-esque offer, and somebody would have to be the adult in the room for the Angels and just be like, listen, this is very, very good for a guy it seems like likely to lose in the offseason. This is huge. We'll see. Like, as we're sitting here right now, the Angels are only 4.5 games back.
That's exactly what I was going to bring
wild
up.
Card.
That is the other thing that I think people right now probably don't consider as much of a possibility, is the Angels are not dead. The Angels are 4.5 out of the wild card. They've won 3 straight. They are over 500. They're a game back of the Yankees. They are 2 games back of Boston, and only 4.5 out of a playoff spot. This is a team that, well, we have all wanted in the baseball world for the last decade, is a team that can be befitting the talents of Mike Trout and now Shohei Ohtani, and getting them in a position where they have the opportunity to succeed on the postseason stage. That's still possible. Now, obviously, Mike Trout being out at various times this season, that has affected the pieces of the puzzle for the Angels, knowing that he's going to be around for a long time and could get back. And, hamate injuries obviously are very difficult to come back from. But if anybody's going to be able to come back from something and be hopefully the same guys we've seen before, it's Mike Trout. Can you get him into the playoffs? Can you make this happen? Shohei Ohtani, I think, very much wants to be a guy who got the Angels to that place and has the ability to get them over the hump and get Mike Trout some playoff success and build something for that franchise to go off of. There's a reason Shohei Ohtani picked the Angels. He has expressed that he doesn't want to play for an East Coast team. He wants to be on the West Coast. I think he very much wants to have success with the Angels rather than being a rental somewhere else. Another, I think, very intriguing element in this whole thing, and I'm not sure if it's an intriguing element for a trade necessarily, but the Seattle Mariners are a team that is hanging around right behind the Angels. They're 5.5 games out of a playoff spot. They're a game back of the Angels in the division and in the wild card race. We all saw the video of fans at the All-Star game chanting, "Come to Seattle." And Shohei Ohtani said afterwards, "Hey, I spent an entire offseason here, and every time I come here, I'm really impressed with the fans," and blah, blah, blah. There is obviously a long and illustrious history of Japanese players in Seattle and ties between the Mariners organization and Japan, which of course was formerly owned, the Mariners system or the Mariners organization, by the CEO, the founder of Nintendo. There are so many ties there that would be a very logical fit down the road for Shohei Ohtani. Now, is that franchise going to have enough money? I don't know. They have 3 top 100 prospects led by Harry Ford, also Cole Young and Gabriel Gonzalez. So they don't necessarily have quite the same currency as the Dodgers, who have 8 top 100 prospects, but there are a lot of teams out there that you think, oh, this would be a fit for them as well, including apparently the Colorado Rockies, whose owner, Dick Montfort, sent an email saying, oh, it'd be fun for a couple of months to get Shohei Ohtani. But for serious organizations, there are a lot of them that really do present very interesting scenarios for where he's going to end up.
Yeah, I mean, the Mariners would be super interesting if the standings were flipped. You talk about them being behind the Angels right now. That would be really weird for them to be the aggressors. Although Jerry Dipoto, trader Jerry Dipoto, who has traded you and me personally, Tyler,
many times.
So you can never rule him out being involved. But again, like if they're not going to trade to the Dodgers because they're just a local team, would they trade to a division rival who they actually have to play multiple times? I don't see that happening. Maybe, like you say, in the offseason, that's definitely a consideration for Ohtani if the Mariners can scrounge up the cash to make it happen. Some other wild cards I'll kind of throw out. The Cincinnati Reds have a major need for pitching. He would satisfy that. And can you imagine Ohtani in that lineup next to Ellie De La Cruz and Matt
already, as they have called themselves, already America's team, the Cincinnati Reds.
Yeah.
And if you add the most exciting dude in baseball to that team, man,
in that ballpark too, which is very hitter friendly
in a bandbox ballpark, hitting in a lineup with Joey Votto and with Ellie De La Cruz, and that would be so much fun.
Now it would hurt. Like you're probably trading somebody like Christian Encarnacion Strand to make that happen. You're probably letting go of Noel V. Marte. Edwin Arroyo is probably going to
Noel V. Marte, who they just acquired in another trade deadline deal last year, by the way. Yeah.
Right. And all those trades have actually looked really good. I mean, I'm sure they would love to have Luis Castillo right now, but like getting Marte, getting Arroyo, getting Encarnacion Strand, Spencer Steer, who's been a great rookie for them. They have the young pieces to pull this off. It's just, are they willing to really go for it in that NL Central, which is very winnable? And here's one that I can't get out of my head. I don't think it's going to happen. They're not the team to do this. And if they do get him, they're not going to extend him. Tampa Bay Rays would be so crazy.
Man, that would be so much fun. That would be so much
like,
fun.
What if they just decided, hey, now is the time?
Yeah,
right?
We got to go for it.
Let's do it. This is the guy you kind of abandon your principles. They're one of the teams that hugs their prospects more than anybody else. Like it's them in Cleveland who refuse to trade their prospects.
Right.
I get it. But man, if you give up, like Junior Caminero is going to be on the table for that. But if you give him up and like Curtis Mead and Carson Williams, it's tough for the Angels to say no to that.
Yeah.
And those are guys, especially Mead is knocking on that door as an option. Man, I'd like to see it. I don't think it's going to happen, but that would be something.
The Tampa Bay Rays, who, by the way, were at one time on pace for the greatest season in baseball history, they have really come back to earth. They are technically on win percentage. They are in second place in the American League East now, behind the Baltimore Orioles, who are 58-37. The Rays have 2 more wins, but they also have 2 more losses. They're 60-39. So the winning percentage is slightly back of Baltimore. So the Rays have gone from, this team that we thought, are they going to win 120 games? What's going to happen with this team? They are a much more normal looking good team. But man, that'd be fun. And it would be the most unorthodox thing that I think we've ever seen that organization do based on their philosophy. But man, if you would have told us at the beginning of the season that we would get to July 20th and the 3 division leaders in the American League would be the Orioles, the Twins, and the Rangers, I'm not sure how many people would have had that on their bingo cards. The Orioles, okay, there was certainly an argument to be made there that team was going to find it. They were going to start clicking with all that prospect. The Twins, sorry, American League Central fans, but it seems like you could just throw out any 26 guys and they could lead that division in 2023. And the Rangers, I mean, that's the Bruce Bochy effect. That's a team that they went all in with some big signings over the last few years. Now you bring in a manager who really has a feel for what it takes to be successful and get to the postseason and win World Series titles. I love that story for the Rangers. I think they are such a fun team to watch. But yeah, not necessarily the 3 I would have picked, in March that coming up on the trade deadline, we'd be looking at as division leaders. One team that we also have not discussed, there is such a narrative out nationally, and I think it's because it's the low-hanging fruit narrative that anybody can do this at any time, any year. But there's also are the Yankees going to go out and try to grab him? I don't see that happening.
I don't see that happening because, guess who the Angels just swept? It was the New York Yankees.
Right. That is a team that is not playing. They're 2-8 in their last 10. They've lost 4 straight. They're 3 games over 500. I just don't know. Yes, obviously that changes the calculus with a team, but I mean, is Shohei Ohtani enough for that team right now? That's a pretty middle of the road looking team at 50-47.
Well, listen, I mean, you put him in that rotation next to Garrett Cole and you're going to be so much better. And you put him in that park.
Right.
I mean,
right.
like some
Yankee
of the tanks he hits now are going to be, that's going to be huge. I know you're talking about like when he first signed, he preferred the West Coast. I would still expect and kind of hope the Yankees make a run at him, because if they're not, what are they doing?
Oh, they will
with that budget. Yeah,
they certainly will over the offseason. They certainly will.
So like that option is available to them. I just don't think they have necessarily the pieces to pull it off right now. They have some prospects that I like. Jason Dominguez is really good. Spencer Jones has had a pretty good first year. He's striking out a lot more than I think many people would like, but he's a huge outfielder in an organization that knows how to develop those guys. So they have something to pull off. It would kind of be like the Padres last year. And you look at the system and like, it's not great, but they have just enough to get Soto. It would be that for the Yankees. Now, do you want to deplete all of that for half a season rather than multiple years of Soto? That's, a debate Ryan Cashman can have, but I think they're just going in the wrong direction. But this might all be moot again. Like, we're talking about the Angels as if they're completely out of it. They're not. So there's still, as we're sitting here on the 20th, trade deadline is August 1st. There's still some time here, but I love talking about this stuff and being in that area where we still don't know answers.
Man, I got to ask one thing, and this is a baffling one to me. What is the deal with the Kansas City Royals? This is a topic, obviously, that doesn't just lend itself into trade deadline discussions and all that. But that team, we know what's going on in Oakland and the roster that the A's have put out there in 2023. The Kansas City Royals are only a game and a half better than that team. The A's are 27-71. The Royals are 28-69. They've got a run differential of -159 this season. They are 15-35 at Kauffman Stadium. They're 13-34 on the road. They're 14-46 against teams over 500. And there was a time in the last few years when we thought, man, the Royals are building something in that system. They got a lot of pitching. They obviously have shown that they can develop talent very well with a World Series title within the last decade that was predicated largely on homegrown players. I know Dayton Moore moving on and all that type of stuff. There have been some changes there, but man, that franchise, not only do they not really have a lot of talent at the major league level and therefore some huge trade pieces, and they dealt Aroldis Chapman, which was somewhat baffling. Aroldis Chapman was in Kansas City to begin with, but they don't have a single top 100 prospect either. And I'm not just meaning this to drag the Royals, but what has happened there?
Yeah, I mean, Kansas City, you talk about, they had a lot of pitching. They did have pitching options.
Yeah.
The biggest problem for them was finishing those guys off, was getting that, like Brady Singer had a time where he looked like, okay, this is the success story. And this year hasn't been great. I mean, he's took a downturn. The thing I will say about that is they have implemented some pitching philosophies and pitching development this year that is starting to turn that corner. It is a slow process. It's like a ship turning at sea. It's not just a quick UE. It's slow and building, and you're starting to see it at the lower levels with guys like Frank Mazzucato and Ben Kudrna. But those guys just got to high A. I mean, it's going to be a while until we can really see. They have some other pieces like Alec Marsh, who I think can be a really good pitcher. He's starting to turn a corner too. It's taking some time, and those guys who made the major leagues, Vinny Pasquantino is injured. He's out the rest of the year.
Right.
That's a big piece.
That hurts a lot.
Yeah. Bobby Witt Jr. is in fits and starts looking like the guy we thought he could be. I think he's getting there, but he's still super young. Yeah. I think that gets lost in that conversation of like, oh, what happened to Bobby Witt Jr.? He's not the superstar some of these guys are.
Yeah, he's really not having that bad of a season. I mean,
he's having a really good season.
A very respectable season for a guy who is still one of the younger players as a major league regular. I mean, this is a guy who was born this millennium. Like Bobby Witt Jr. just turned 23 last month. So I'm not writing that dude off. He's also hitting 256 with an OPS that's around 750 this year. Like, they are very similar numbers to what he did last season, but last season he started the year as a big league regular at 21. Yeah. I'm not writing off Bobby Witt Jr.
No, but it's still like it's going to be some growing pains. They've identified this year as kind of like we're going to find out some stuff about ourselves, and maybe they have, and that's why they've implemented those pitching development changes. Those started before the year began. It's just going to take some time. Yes, Gavin Cross is not taking off in the way you would hope. Frank Mazzucato is kind of like a borderline top 100 guy, but is walking more than I would like, and he was repeating a level at single A to begin the year. So now we find out a little bit more about him at high A. There's some interesting pieces there, but if they're really using this year as a see and find out year, they found out some stuff, and they're going to have to make some changes in the offseason in terms of like going out and acquiring better players and building around that core that is still there. They need to be supplementing, and they really haven't done that. Aroldis Chapman, they turned into Cole Reagans,
right?
Who like is now throwing upper 90s in ways that really surprise Rangers fans.
Yeah.
So like that's something you do. You go out and identify other pitchers and you bring them in. They can still make some trades here coming up that I think are going to bulk up that system. How much, we'll see. We're talking about relievers they're moving. I don't think they're going to move any huge pieces. But you know, there's still some work to be done, but it is being done. You can kind of see the pieces of it in ways that it's a little bit more difficult to see in Oakland.
In case anybody was wondering, by the way, Gorkys Hernandez is still playing, or at least he was as of this winter league. He was with the Cardenales of Lara in the Venezuelan winter league. So I know you were all dying to know. And yes, Gorkys Hernandez still kicking around. He was in the Mexican League over the last few years. He was most recently in affiliated ball in 2019 in the Red Sox organization. So now you know the rest of the story, like Paul Harvey. All right, let's continue. And Sam, as we get close to the trade deadline, the players who will be potentially future trade prospects or will be the guys necessitating big prospect packages in trades, the future stars of Major League Baseball. 2023 MLB first-year player draft class. We're already seeing some deals inked, some other deals that are probably close to being signed. Where do we stand right now in some of the most notable talent and some of the top picks who have already signed or seem to be on the verge of, or maybe you're a little bit further away from signing than we thought?
Yeah. So the big one obviously is going to be number 1 overall pick, Paul Skeens out of LSU. The Pirates have already signed him for $9.2 million, which is a draft record. It breaks the previous record held by Spencer Torkelson in 2020. He signed for $8,416,300. So that's essentially breaking the record by $800,000, which is reflective, of course, of Skeen's talent. I mean, we've said he's MLB Pipeline's top prospect in this draft. Guy can touch 102 with ease. He's got a plus slider. I mean, it's stuff that you play immediately in the major leagues. And that's why I think the Pirates took him because they think like, hey, this is a future ace that's really difficult to draft and develop. Like guys don't come this ready-made as Skeens is. But it's also reflective of just the economics of baseball right now, because even that $9.2 million signing is $500,000 lower than the slot value for the number 1 overall pick this year. So bonus pools are rising to reflect the economics of the game. So we're going to see these records kind of continually broken over the next few years, which is good. It's good for players. It's good for the game that we are seeing this level of investment. Obviously, you kind of wonder what could Skeens get if he was out on the open market and not drafted, but that's a conversation for a different day. But the fact that he's already signed is really promising and a good sign for the Pirates. And just, you know, for the rest of us, there's no signing day drama. Who's it going to be? We're still waiting on Dylan Cruz to officially sign with the Nationals, speaking with Jim Callis of MLB Pipeline, our colleague, who has been tweeting out signing bonus stuff left and right. If you're not following Jim on Twitter, Jim Callis, MLB, please do so. He's been like the king of this, breaking all this news. He's not worried about basically anybody signing. I was on the MLB Pipeline podcast this week, and he put the over-under on the guys who won't sign in the top 10 rounds at 1. Just because, you know, there's that risk of like, if you don't sign, you're going back to school, you're risking a signing bonus that's right in front of you. All of this stuff is pretty easy to figure out in terms of the economics of it. There's not a ton of negotiation to go into it. So fully expect Dylan Cruz to sign, especially being the number 2 overall pick. Like there's only one spot he can go higher. And if he's going back next year as a senior, he loses a lot of negotiation points. So fully expect him to sign. He just hasn't done it yet. Max Clark signed with the Tigers for $7.7 million. That's a little below slot. Wyatt Langford signed for $8 million with the Rangers. That was a little above slot, which was $7.7 million. We're still also waiting for Walker Jenkins to sign with the Twins, but again, fully expect that to happen before the deadline on the 25th. So, that stuff's going to come out slowly before next Tuesday, but fully expect it to happen. Don't panic yet if you're a Twins fan or a Nationals fan of being like, why hasn't this happened yet? Shouldn't it all be buttoned up? There's a lot of things for these guys are waiting for. My guess, and this is completely a guess, it's an educated one, but it's a guess. I think Cruz is kind of waiting for the Nationals to sign everybody else and just see what's left. And then he wants all of it, which is totally his right to do. Like you can
imagine having that as an option in your life. Like,
yeah,
I'm just going to see what the pot is at the end of this. And then I want all of it.
All of it. Yeah. And they can go 5% over their bonus pool without losing a pick. Like they have to pay an overage tax, but like they're going to be willing to do that to make sure they get Dylan Cruz. So I don't think he's going to sign for above 9.2 million. That's just not how the math is going to work. It's probably going to be around 9 million. Still a heck of a payday for Dylan Cruz. It's just not going to break the record already set by his former LSU teammate. So just, something to keep an eye out before the signing deadline on the 25th, but don't expect any drama. I don't think there's going to be a Kumar Rocker situation here unless there's something about a medical we're not hearing, but it doesn't seem that way so far.
The latest development in the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes, by the way, is not much of a development, but our friend, John Morosi tweeted a little while ago, the Angels have not made a decision as of yet. They will likely wait to the final 24 to 48 hours before the deadline, before they make a decision. So teams continue to contact the Angels about potential trade possibilities. That is, as much of an earth shifting type of deal as is conceivably possible in baseball. So it's going to be something that's fun to watch over the next 11, 12 days as the trade deadline gets closer and closer. Well, coming up, we are really excited. We're headed to the Buffalo Bisons organization this week. And Sam, this is an interview that we were both really excited to get a chance to do. Buffalo GM Anthony Sprague is going to be with us talking about a super fan and a very unique recognition for that super fan.
Yeah, on September 2nd, the Buffalo Bisons will be giving out a bobblehead for superfan Mark Aichinger. And if you've ever been to a Buffalo game, you probably know who Mark is. He's got a very loud, boisterous personality in the best possible way. He gives the Bisons true home field advantage, which I love. And it's funny to hear Anthony tell these stories because it's not just fans who know who Mark is. It's opposing teams. It's members of the Bisons. It's people who haven't played there in years. Remember who he is. They even honored him with a cardboard cutout back when the Blue Jays played in Buffalo during the shortened 2020 season. So
in his seat, by the way,
in his own seat,
it was in his
there could be nobody else,
which is super cool.
Yeah.
And we also were informed by Anthony that Mark will be listening to this episode. So hi, Mark.
Hi, Mark. We're very happy for you. We're very excited for you to get
so excited for this bobblehead. This is awesome.
Yeah. So it's already out in the world. You can already see what it looks like on the Buffalo Bisons website. But here's us talking to GM of the Bisons, Anthony Sprague. Well, we're very pleased this week to be joined on the show before the show by Buffalo Bisons GM Anthony Sprague, who came out with a very fun and a very unique bobblehead this week honoring superfan Mark Aichinger. Anthony, first off, thanks so much for being here and joining us. How are you doing?
Awesome. No, I'm excited to be here and appreciate the invite from you guys, Sam, Tyler. But obviously very excited to talk about our boy Mark.
Yeah, Mark is, if you've ever been to a Buffalo Bisons game, you know who Mark is, even if you don't know his name. He's one of the loud, like I said, super fans that every team kind of has, but is unique to Buffalo in his way. Kind of take us through, like, what kind of presence does Mark bring to the ballpark?
Boy, I mean, you talk about a presence is a good way to put it. So every day, when you're walking the concourse, getting ready for the game, sometimes gates could be open, sometimes not. You know when Mark has arrived, because he may be across the street, he may be kind of entering the plaza, but he is going to let out a humongous hey as soon as he sees the first person. And I'm telling you, it's through the concourse. Our fans, staff, they'll hear that and oh, Mark's here. Mark is here. And that's his way to announce his presence, that he's arrived at the game. He'll make his stops along the way, say hi to the vendors, the ticket takers, all his friends. It's usually about a 10-minute process before he enters the actual seating bowl. And when he enters the seating bowl, it's another, hey, especially if the visiting team's out there, you stink. As he starts coming in, he'll drop his bag at his seat, and then usually kind of go make his way back out to the concourse. He'll yell at the other team if they're there again. If they kind of acknowledge him, then he knows he's got them, and he's going to have fun with them all game. So it's quite a process for when he gets here and he comes into the ballpark.
Yeah, and you mentioned other teams recognize him because he's basically an International League legend at this point. Everybody knows who he is. Everybody who's ever played against the Bisons knows that they stink because of his name. You were talking about this before with the bobblehead, which comes out in September 2nd. Take us through the process of designing this and getting it through, because Mark has been known for decades in Buffalo, and this has been a long time coming, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, I've been here for 20 years. And Mark was well established before I got here. And when I was an intern, I kind of, didn't know much about him or whatnot, but I was like, holy cow, that guy's crazy. And then everyone's like, oh yeah, that's Mark. And it took me a homestand to become friends with him. But yeah, I mean, so honestly, this has been talked about probably for a decade, I would say. Fans around have pushed for it. We've talked about it, and just trying to figure out the right time to do it. I don't know if there was ever going to be a wrong time to do it as the results of the feedback and everything we got from them. But we had talked about it, and it was kind of always on the we should do this. And then this off season, I think we kind of all just looked at each other and said, all right, what are we waiting for? Let's just do it. Let's go on with it. Everyone kind of around the team and some fans were kind of the conversation was increasing a little bit, and we said, yep, let's do it. I talked to his brother and sister, and we set up a time to go to his house and got him in his what we consider his typical get up Bison's hat, jersey with his name on the back. Shorts, and it was in the dead of winter. I went there and he kept asking me why was I there? And I was like, oh, don't worry about it, buddy. We're just a promotion that we're trying to figure out, talking about the jersey. I don't remember what I said to make stuff up, but he just, he's smart enough. He knew something was going on. And then we let him know in May, actually, for when we did the recording and everything. So it's but when we started to get the molds and everything, I mean, there was never a bobblehead that I've seen that you could hear when you see it and that spoke to you, and it just is as dead on as this bobblehead is.
Anthony, you've got a great video up on the site from when you told him. And the thing that strikes me is not only Mark's reaction and how excited he was, but the coolest thing about that video to me is after he sees the rendering of the bobblehead, what looks to be the entire front office pours in cheering for him. And it really shows you how much he means to you guys as a team. What was that moment like for you, getting a chance? Obviously, you'd sort of been in communication with him, but to formally unveil it to him and for the rest of your staff to be able to be there for that.
Yeah, I mean, it was special. I mean, there's promotions every year that you kind of look forward to, moments of the year that you look forward to. And when we decided this one, that was the one that for me personally, he and I go so far back that was marked on my calendar. I could not wait to do that. And, he's always a little, I don't want to say standoffish at times, because that's not, as you see him, his personality is not the way, but when you explain something to him, he wants to process it and make sure he knows what's going on. And he feeds off everybody else. That's why we wanted to have the staff there, and everyone wanted to be there too. It was like, hey, we're going to do this. This is special for him. And whenever you could see when everyone else kind of started to get excited for him, that's when he was like, oh man, this is a big deal. This isn't just something small. And everyone started coming in, and knowing Mark, he gets excited about stuff. He gets fired up, but that was a different Mark. That was you could tell he was really touched by it. And, it was 20 years. That was easily, I don't know. I'd have to really dig deep to try and find a better professional moment for me and something I'll remember forever.
We are in such a different era of minor league baseball nowadays with, the wide scope of it and MLB overseeing everything and all that. But this is something that kind of goes back to really the roots of minor league baseball. I mean, the late 1800s, early 1900s, where teams had a fan base that formed such an intense emotional local connection. And it's not just about player development and moving guys along to the next level and all that. But there really is an element of, oh no, I cheer for the Bisons because that's my team. That's the team that I love most. What is it about, especially the way, Mark has not only influenced your team, but opposing teams that come in who he's always on from, first pitch or even before first pitch, it sounds like. What do you hear from, players, coaches, managers, player development people who have gone through there to see somebody who's got such a connection to a local team? I would imagine the realization of that from the people who are on the field has got to be really cool to hear about.
It's amazing. And when we released that too, it was the who's who was reaching out and retweeting and quote tweeting all that stuff and messaging us. It was crazy. People, honestly, we kind of forgot about that. Oh yeah, that's right. He came through here. And but it goes way beyond just the Bison's crew. I mean, I truly believe he could walk into any major league stadium, because those are the guys that have kind of been through a little bit, and give a yell by a dugout, and somebody from each team would turn and say, "Oh my God, Mark's here! You got to be kidding me!" So it just, even the visiting team, when they come in, you mentioned that they know about him too. There's time, like, he works. He's in a bowling league, and he does all kinds of different stuff. So he does miss a game or two here and there. And, because of his handicap and what people wonder, like, oh geez, so if he misses a game or heaven forbid 2 games in a row, the talk is I'll get a text message from, hey, everything okay with Mark? And oh yeah, he's at bowling tonight, or he's at a birthday party, or whatever it is. Like, yeah, he's fine. He's got something going. Or honestly, early on in the season, he's kind of a baby, that he'll watch the games from my office too, because I have a nice view. That he gets too cold, he'll be out there for 2 innings and be like, no. And then all of a sudden we'll get a knock at the back door here, and I know he's coming in to watch the rest of the game. So, but then people will say, oh geez, where's Mark? I didn't see him. What's going on? Or you didn't hear him on the radio yelling into the field mic that's right there. But you always know he's here, or he's at least listening for sure. But yeah, the visiting team that come in, they all know that when they come out, they look behind home plate to see if he's there.
I gotta ask, he's in a bowling league. Does he go after his opponents in the bowling league? Is he yelling?
He's pretty calm about that. I would say he's friends with them all. But he's intense. I can tell you, he gets, I think he averages like 100, I would say, I think. And I've bowled with him many a time. But if
better than I do.
He's been doing it forever, and he's got the 2-handed roll going. But yeah, if a good song breaks out, don't trust me, he'll stop bowling and he'll cut a rug right on the bowling alley right there.
Yeah, I feel like he's also a better sportsman than I would. If I was in a league with Tyler, I would be yelling at Tyler all the time.
You would. Sam just yells at me on this podcast.
Yes, I know. Yeah.
No, when you're in with Mark and you're a friend of Mark, you're a friend for life. And regardless if there's a little competition going or whatnot, he's all good with it for sure.
All right, well, let's get into the bobblehead a little bit and in designing the bobblehead, what it looks like. I mean, you talk about how this was basically a decade in the making. I'm sure there's many different ways you could have gone about this, but also maybe not, because it's got his iconic pose of him tugging on his sleeve. Kind of take people through. I know this is a non-visual podcast, but kind of paint a picture for us of how the bobblehead came out.
Yeah, we were trying. I mean, look, he's, like I said, he's been here but he's 30 years. So he has every jersey, every cap, everything that you can imagine. So, man, that was a hard part to try and figure out, okay, what jersey is he going to wear? His favorite forever was Torey Lovullo's Bisons jersey from when he played here, and then when he managed here too. So that one was in consideration for us. But then our clubhouse manager got him a nice red Bisons one with his name on the back, just named Mark on the back, because that's how everybody knows him. So we kind of opted for that one because that's been, in the last couple of years, been one of his favorites. He's got his jean shorts on, black socks and sneakers. And that's, when we were talking about it, it was like, okay, everyone in the room kind of said, okay, what do you envision of Mark when he's coming in? And that was it. That was the one that we got. He has a batting helmet now too, because we used to have netting that went all the way across the top, so he could just wear a cap. But now when he sits out there, we got him a little batting helmet because, Mark, God love him, he's not going to catch a pop-up. And so we don't want him to hit him right in the dome or anything like that. So we got him that, but we still went with a traditional Bison's cap.
All right. And we were talking a little bit about this before, but I feel like this is something that every club could do, but not every club has done. So when you go to the winter meetings this year, or whatever version of the promo seminar exists now, and start to tell other clubs, what are you going to tell them about this process and honoring a super fan that every team doesn't have Mark exactly. Mark is one of one, but like every team has that one fan that's always there and is recognizable and can be honored.
Yeah, I hope this does kind of open the floodgates a little bit, because you're absolutely right. Every team certainly has at least one or two fans like this, and maybe we're a little nervous, as we were, what the potential reaction could have been about just doing a fan. Some teams may say, oh geez, how do we pick one fan over another if we do this one? Our other season ticket holders or longtime fans going to be slighted that they weren't picked. But I think you hit the nail on the head that you can do this, and we're a I want to say a copycat leagues, if you will. We see one team do something good, we know it can work in our market. We're not in competition with each other. We work in conjunction with each other. So yeah, I'm going to tell them, look, this has been look, I knew it was going to be my favorite promotion of the year, but I think it's going to become a lot of people's favorite promotion this year. And no doubt that every team should look at this and say, oh man, we've got that fan. We're going to get that same reaction, and not only make it a special night for your staff, because again, everybody, everyone loves that person in your stadium. The fans love that person in your stadium too. So it's not just about getting people in the ballpark and making a fun promotion. It is going to be a memorable promotion and night for everybody involved. I mean, we're a league that, and working in sports and stuff, you got to tug on people's emotions and tie into that thing. It's not necessarily about the win or loss on the field. It's what goes on everywhere else. And this can make it, I guarantee you, the day after, no one's going to maybe except for Mark, actually, no one's going to remember if the Bisons won or lost that game. It's going to be about everything else, and every other team, they know right now, oh geez, we could do that for this person and that person. I just encourage them, go on with it and do it.
All right, Anthony. Well, before we let you go here, I'm just going to let you kind of take the floor one last time and just share, what is your favorite Mark story over the last 2 decades?
Oh man. I don't know how much time we got left, because there's so many of them.
It's a podcast.
It's a podcast.
Yeah,
you can take as much time as you want.
All right. I will. All right. So Mark, now he's gone through a couple iterations of his of where he works and stuff. So at the previous place he worked, the Olmsted Center, he now works at the Candlesian Center, which, just a little plug on this, we are going to be doing whatever, I'm going to do it. We're going to be doing other things around Mark for this game that is going to fundraise for his place of work. Great 501c3 Candlesian Center. They employ folks just like Mark around to give them something to do, give them employment, make some money. So we're gonna not only just do this for Mark, but for where he works as well too, because like I said, his previous place had to shut down his department, which was a tough few years for Mark specifically and for his whole family. But anyway, so in his previous place, Mark would get out of work, I would say at like 3:00, and he would take his bus down to the ballpark. And, so gates don't open for 3 hours, but he would just come, he'd eat some of our pregame meal, sit out in the stands, and, we'd be taking BP. And one of the times, I don't remember what team it was, but they were having a team meeting down the left field line, and Mark just felt like, I'm going to mess with them. So he walks down all the way down to right where, just about the foul line, and they're having their team meeting, everybody's together. Mark's just leaning over the railing, not doing anything, not saying anything, just listening. And eventually they had a couple guys looked over and like, geez, what is Mark doing? What's Mark doing? He's just eyeing us up there. And look, Mark looked right through you because he's legally blind. So he's trying to see if anyone's looking at him. So finally sees it, like the whole team's looking at him. And they were like, Mark, what are you doing? He just starts screaming at them so loud, you guys stink, get out of here, just going off on them, that he actually broke up their team meeting. The manager was like, forget it. We're giving up. We're not going to do it. So he feels good about it. He starts walking away. They get back together to try and start their meeting again. Mark walks right back down, starts screaming at him. They breaks up the team meeting again. So then they officially stopped it and went through it. So I'm like, my God, he's not only taking over games, he takes over pregame and BP and all that stuff. But no, the guy, in tongue in cheek, he can really mess with the other team pretty good. Yeah,
and give you guys true home field advantage, which is
100%.
what every super fan should be doing.
Yeah, it's amazing. But that one's a G-rated version of some of the good stories that we have about Mark and what he's done here over the years.
All right. Well, we're very excited to see the bobblehead out in the world on September 2nd. If anybody is in the Buffalo area, or maybe if you're not and you're looking to tick Buffalo off on your minor league road trip, September 2nd is a great opportunity to do that as the Bisons honor Mark Aichinger. Anthony Sprague, GM of the Buffalo Bisons, thank you so much for joining us, and good luck with everything moving forward the rest of the season.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. Tyler, appreciate you being on, and we look forward to listening to you guys forward.
Well, as we roll along here on the show before the show, we are joined by, as we always are each week, just in a different place this week because he will be on vacation during our normal recording slot. Benjamin Hill. Ben, thank you so much for being here, as you are every week, but thanks for being here specifically this week. We know you're going to be in Gloucester, Massachusetts for part of the week, enjoying some time up there. But how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm in Massachusetts right now, in Western Massachusetts, in Hadley, Massachusetts, which I called a village, and then you scoffed at me because you said that's a legitimate town. It's not a village, but this is where Jill, my fiance's family, is from. So I'm working remotely here in Western Massachusetts today and tomorrow, and then headed for the coast to Gloucester. And but anytime I'm in Massachusetts, I just think of it as Sam Dykstra territory, basically.
I know, between this and Ghost last week, the Pittsfield Hillies, it's been a heck of a time for Western Massachusetts geography on this show, which I enjoy. I'm grateful that we're doing it, and we can educate the public on what is apparently a town and a village.
Yeah, I'm learning.
My neck of the woods.
It's a beautiful area. I really like it around here. I feel like they got to fix their roads though. Driving around, I'm like, too many potholes. They're all beat up, and I start to get grumpy, like, like a dad driving a car. I'm like, come on, what's up with these roads? But I'm making it through.
You sound specifically like my father now.
Yeah.
As somebody who's constantly traversing those very same roads that you are on now. But anyway, before we let you go on vacation, we wanted to bring you on the show and talk about a few things coming up. But first, we wanted to start with this story about Kaleb Bowman, who, if people haven't heard about him before, you definitely should, because he has one of my favorite routes to the minor leagues. Not just I wanted to say roots to pro ball, but he's played pro ball in many, many places before landing in what we understand to be affiliated ball. What can you tell us about the long odyssey of Kaleb Bowman?
Yeah, the overseas odyssey of Kaleb Bowman. I met Kaleb when I was in Biloxi last month. He is currently a member of the Biloxi Shuckers, a right-handed reliever, and 26 years old. And he's 26 years old and in his first affiliated minor league season. So obviously took him a while to get here, and it's a really interesting story. I got to shout out the Shuckers broadcaster, Javik Blake, who, when I was planning my trip to Biloxi, he said, hey, you might want to talk to Kaleb Bowman. He has a really interesting story. And as you know, I don't focus on players. I leave that to the experts such as yourself. But when I get tipped to a player with an unorthodox backstory, I'd like to pursue it. And Kaleb has a really interesting story. He's 26 years old, as I said, in his first minor league season, as I said. And here's something I didn't say. He played in Canada, Australia, and Germany before getting his break in minor league baseball. He went to Appalachian State in North Carolina in 2019, didn't get drafted. He wasn't necessarily expecting that, but, thought he had some leads on getting signed after the draft. It didn't work out. It's a pretty common thing. There's a lot of guys vying every year to get signed by major league organizations, both in the draft and afterwards. And he said, I know I've still got baseball left in me. I know I can get better. I know I'm better now than I've ever been, and I'm not going to give this up. So a friend of his told him about a website, which I've heard mentioned in the past, but was it baseballoverseas.com? Or baseballoverseasjobs.com. And he put a profile up on that, kind of like a dating site in its own way. Here's who I am. Here's what I bring to the table. Is anyone interested in me? And he was shocked. He got all these offers, from teams all over. And, as you know, the quality of play can really vary internationally. But, it's the late summer 2019, and he gets a shot in New Brunswick, Canada with the Fredericton Royals. And says, okay, I'm going to go do that. Plays there for a couple months, kind of like a men's league, not a super high level play. And from there gets an offer with Surfers Paradise, a great name. They're on the Gold Coast of Australia. And then he goes to Surfers Paradise and plays a season there. Then COVID hits. He goes back home. He's working with special needs youth. He's, running a local baseball facility. He's putting videos of himself on Twitter. He's trying to find the next thing. And that ends up to be Regensburg, Germany. And, that's a little bit higher level play out there. Regensburg was the site of, a World Baseball Classic qualifier this past September. So it's an amazing facility. He was living right near the ballpark, ended up spending 2 seasons in Regensburg, did really well there. Pitcher of the year both years, MVP in 2022. Then he thinks he has an opportunity with a major league team. It falls through, but he gets an offer from the Gastonia Honey Hunters of that's Gastonia, North Carolina, an independent Atlantic League team. And so he says, okay, I'll pitch for Gastonia. He goes there at the end of the 2022 season, does well. The Atlantic League, you get a lot of former major league guys there, pretty high level play, probably the highest level independent league. And from there, finally gets a call from the Brewers and says, hey, you want to sign with us? So he signs with the Brewers, starts with High A Wisconsin Timber Rattlers this season, played 13 games there. And since then, he's played 13 games with Biloxi. And, he's working it out. So, I like to tell guys stories. I can't really break down Bowman as a pitcher, Kaleb Bowman. But, he's a shorter guy. He has really long hair, compact build. He's, experimented with a lot of different, arm slots and deceptive deliveries. So I think he's going to get by on, maybe not pure overpowering stuff, but a perhaps more cerebral approach, and keeping the hitters guessing in terms of exactly what slot he's going to throw from and what the delivery might be like from pitch to pitch. So really interesting dude. A real man of faith. His dad is a pastor. Just profound sense of gratitude for how far he's made it. And Sam, I think I showed you in the office my interview transcript with Kaleb Bowman. I basically asked one question it was barely even a question of just kind of like, wow, you've had quite a journey to get to this point. Bam, like 3,000 word answer. He just took me through everything. He seemed really happy to talk about it, and just exuded a lot of positivity and confidence. And I just walked away thinking like, this guy's going to be fun to root for, and what a story. So that's the Kaleb Bowman story, and check it out on MILB.com. Went up today. We're talking here on Tuesday, and gotten a pretty good response thus far. So I think there might be something to this player coverage.
Yeah, we should put you on a few prospect rankings here coming up then when we do our re-ranking.
I'm working.
But one thing I really want to touch on there, what you were talking about, is him being somebody who, will change up his arm slot and move things around and be really cerebral. I mean, that seems like his whole story, right? Is he seems like somebody who's willing to try different things to get to where he wants to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And the interesting thing about that, when you think about it, is, he's not with an organization. So he's not learning some larger organizational philosophies or having some, coaching continuity within a specific system. He's learning as he goes along and learning from other people, but mostly just learning from himself. He's in Australia and he's throwing on a beach and he's working things out. He's in, Fredericton, New Brunswick, working things out. He's in Germany working things out. So that creates a level of, self-reliance and resilience that, I think any player needs to really make it to the major leagues, obviously. But when you don't do it with a larger coaching philosophy, and you don't have people employed to help and teach you specifically along the way necessarily, that adds a whole nother wrinkle, and I think makes it that much more impressive.
For sure. And like Ben said, check out that story on MILB.com right now, and learn about the overseas odyssey of Kaleb Bowman. Speaking of odysseys, Ben, you have another road trip coming up. I feel like the well has been dry in terms of us being able to talk about places you've been recently. We talked a lot about your Southern swing each week for the last month plus. So now we're going to replenish that a little bit with you hitting the road again. Where are you headed?
Yeah, I'll be out at the crack of August. Not a local trip per se, but one that I will just be completely car oriented, not getting on an airplane. And places that I've been to a little more recently. That's all relative with my career, but as opposed to my first two trips this season where I was hitting places I hadn't been in 10 or 11 years. For the most part now, it's places I haven't been to in 5 or 6 years, a little more local. And I'm looking forward to it. Starting out in Syracuse, home of the Syracuse Mets, NBT Bank Stadium. It's only been 5 years since I've been there, but a lot of ballpark changes in those 5 years. Becoming owned by the Mets, which was in place 5 years ago, but it was still kind of a transitional time. But owned by the Mets, a lot of ballpark upgrades, with recent facility standards and that kind of thing. And always just a fun environment too. Their GM, Jason Smorrell, is just definitely one of the more gung-ho, irreverent kind of characters in minor league baseball. So always looking forward to what he has up his sleeve. Last time I was there, they played as the Butter Sculptures, which is a tribute to a New York State Fair tradition. No butter sculptures this time around, but you never know what you're going to see in Syracuse. So looking forward to that. And then heading about 70 miles south and one rung down on the Mets minor league ladder to Double-A Binghamton. That team used to be called the Mets, and then of course in 2017 they rebranded as the Rumble Ponies because Binghamton has a history of carousels. I believe there was some rich guy in town many decades ago who bequeathed the city with many carousels. I need to look into the story a little bit, but they're the Rumble Ponies now. Haven't been there I think since 2017, their first season of the Rumble Ponies. So looking forward to going back there. Of course, Speedies are on the agenda, the local specialty of Binghamton. That's SPIEDIE, little marinated meat cubes, which are just a huge thing in Binghamton and that central New York region. From there, going from the Mets system to the Yankee system on August 3rd, the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Riders, AAA Yankees affiliate, And I somehow haven't been there for 9 years. And I'm really looking forward to going back there because, as I've probably mentioned on this podcast before, and also recently in my newsletter, I've been asking people to share memories of their first minor league game, which has been getting me to think about mine. You know, as I get these emails, people sharing their memories, I think about my first minor league game, and it was Scranton Wilkes-Barre, 1989, the inaugural season of that franchise when they were called the Red Barons and they were a Phillies affiliate. So, yikes! I was doing that math just earlier today. I was like, "What?" That was 34 years ago. I went to my first minor league game in Scranton. And obviously, a lot has changed since then. And I did see the ballpark in its new form. There was a year, I want to say 2010 or 2011, where that ballpark, which was originally called Lackawanna County Stadium and modeled after the Vet in terms of its dimensions and artificial turf, Philadelphia's Veterans Stadium. It was basically completely torn down. The team spent a whole season on the road, and it was built back up. And it's now called PNC Field. They're now a Yankees affiliate. So a lot has changed, but still, it's baseball in the location where I saw it first, at least minor league baseball. So I have a lot of great memories there, and looking forward to going back there for the first time in 9 years. Where does the time go? My goodness. And then, Scranton Wilkes-Barre used to be a AAA affiliate. The Phillies AAA, or it used to be the Phillies AAA affiliate. The Phillies AAA affiliate now, of course, is Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs. So going to hit them up. Been another, again, 5 or 6 years since I've been there. And they are playing on August 4th, a Friday, as Scrapple. The Scrapple? I guess just Scrapple. And, that's something, I wouldn't quite say I grew up with it, but, growing up in Pennsylvania, I was aware of it. It's actually pretty good. It's not gluten-free, so I'm not supposed to have it these days in my celiac disease life. It doesn't sound appetizing, but it's pretty good. It's called Scrapple, and that's kind of what it is, scraps. It's a meat mush that is then pan-fried and usually comes out in a kind of crispy rectangle. And it's a breakfast meat of choice in areas of Pennsylvania, as well as areas of Maryland. The Delmarva Shorebirds also have a Scrapple identity. So let it be known that there are 2 Scrapple identities in minor league baseball in Lehigh Valley, that's Allentown, Pennsylvania, and in Salisbury, Maryland, with the Delmarva Shorebirds. They're playing as the Scrapple. A problem with Scrapple as an alternate identity is it is just a brown rectangle. It's hard to make that pop. It's hard to
not many colorful aspects to the Scrapple.
Yeah, there's not many colors. Doesn't naturally anthropomorphize and take on eyes or body parts, swing bats. But you got to celebrate the regional breakfast cuisine and make do. And I think because I do have that local connection, to the Phillies, to Pennsylvania, to the Scrapple region of this country, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with that as well.
Yeah, I mean, knowing a few people, including yourself, obviously, who are from the Philly area, the amount I've learned about Scrapple in the last decade has been more than I could have imagined. So it's definitely something that gets people excited, which is the whole point of these food-based identities.
Wait, now, have you had it?
I've had it once. It was good. It was good.
Yeah.
It's not something like I seek out in my, I'm wishing Brooklyn would get Scrapple, but it's good. It's fine.
But doesn't that seem like something Brooklyn would get eventually? It's like, oh, this is the place that sells Scrapple, high.
It probably exists.
It probably does.
I'm just not seeking it out, but yeah, I'm sure it exists somewhere in one of these bagel spots in our great borough. Speaking of hitting the road, Ben, I will be on the road with our friend and colleague Kelsey Hennigan this week. We are going to Nashville, and we're going to bring a lot of stuff from Nashville to next week's episode. It's going to be our themed episode of the show before the show for this month of July. It's going to be the MLB Pipeline Game of the Month. But you've been to Nashville. You've been everywhere. So what do you remember about visiting the Sounds, and what can you kind of do to preview our trip down there?
Yeah, I've been to Nashville, I believe, 3 times, but just once I say their new ballpark, but it's not that new anymore. That ballpark is now called, is it First Horizon Field? Yeah, I know the name has changed since it first opened. I went there in the inaugural season, which is, I want to say 2014 or 15.
First Horizon Park.
First Horizon Park.
In case anybody's yelling at their podcast device right now. First Horizon Park.
First Horizon Park. I went there when it first opened. Didn't even get a full game in because some heavy rains came later in the evening. But I think you'll enjoy that one quite a bit. The former home of the Sounds, for many decades from the 70s, through 2014 or so, was Greer Stadium. And that was definitely a little bit more of an out of the way location, definitely a ramshackle facility. And so while it had its charms and I liked Greer, when you're talking about a market like Nashville, which is in many respects a major league, quote unquote, market, if not a major league team, but just in terms of demographic and population size, population density, all the cultural things going on there. I mean, that's the kind of city that does need, if you're going to have minor league baseball, something that really is in the downtown, and, the same way Charlotte did as well. Charlotte, kind of a similar market, used to play in South Carolina and were kind of out of the way and didn't draw too well, but then they got in the downtown and started doing really well. And same thing with the Sounds. It's a ballpark. Things were sprouting up around that immediate area of the ballpark when I visited, and I'm sure you'll see a lot more of that in terms of, housing and businesses and restaurants right around that ballpark. They really started to embrace the hot chicken theme, as soon as they moved to the new ballpark with a hot chicken mascot, selling hot chicken at the ballpark, and recently unveiling their hot chicken identity. And that's another one I really wish I could eat myself, being gluten-free. But hearing stories from people in Nashville the last time I was there about hot chicken, I think at the ballpark, you're going to have it pretty mild. It's a ballpark. They're not trying to, send people to the hospital or have them just like convulsing in their seats. But legit, real deal Nashville hot chicken is very, very spicy. It's not the kind of thing you just say, oh yeah, I like spicy food, let me get it extra hot. It will debilitate you. And a lot of these places are kind of hole in the wall joints, open real late. You go in at 2 a.m, maybe feeling a little bit more courageous than usual, and oh boy, people have stories about Nashville hot chicken. And the original story behind it was a woman, who had a man who was perhaps a bit of a ne'er-do-well, and he came in late at night and she was sick of his antics and his drunkenness, and so he was hungry and she was having none of it, so she made his chicken super, super spicy as like revenge. But he was like, actually, this is pretty good. You dredged it in so much cayenne. I'm kind of feeling this heat. I like it. That's the story. I don't know if that's apocryphal, but it's a big part now of the Nashville Sounds ballpark culinary experience. And, as I said, the mascot and the alternate identity. So curious to see what you and Kelsey end up with on the hot chicken front. Also a great record store. I mean, many great record stores in Nashville, but if you get the time, hit up Grimey's, Grimeys. Actually, I know a guy who works there, Tyler. He's a great dude. He'll hook you up. We love people named Tyler on this podcast. But great record store there, and also a great burger place near Greer Stadium. If you want to see what remains of Greer Stadium and get a good burger, Gabby's Burgers is truly excellent and might give you a chance to wander around the old baseball landscape, which last I saw at Greer was just overgrown and kind of haunted looking and sad, but kind of cool looking. I don't even know what happened with the old guitar scoreboard there, but of course I think that was sold. But of course the new ballpark, First Horizon Field, has its own new iteration of, did I say it wrong?
It's Park.
It is Park. First Horizon Park has its a new gleaming guitar scoreboard, and that of course immediately establishes the primary identity, not the hot chickens, but the Sounds. That's of course an allusion to being the sound of Nashville. And when you have a guitar scoreboard, that really hammers the point home.
I think seeing the scoreboard is going to be one of my biggest things to do. I mean, quite literally, considering the size of it. But yeah, I mean, I've been to Nashville. I went down for the first time almost 2 years ago, and I had a hot chicken sandwich, and it was just painful to work through. I mean, you get to a point where it's just like, this is not enjoyable. This is me just trying to force this hot thing. Like I don't handle spice as well as others, I guess, and maybe, like you said, I didn't have enough liquid courage in me to be trying it at the hour that I did, which was like the normal 7 o'clock hour. But yeah, there's degrees to everything. So I think I have to keep trying it, and I'll find one I like.
Work your way up during your time there. Have mild for breakfast, hot for lunch, and extra hot for dinner, and then then sleep it off. Yeah, sleep it off
if you can sleep after that. All right. Well, thanks, Ben. But before we send you off on vacation, normally we do this at the end of the show, but since you'll be off this week, what's a promo to watch for people going into next week?
What is a promo to watch? I was looking that up earlier, and I didn't see any that were just like really, really jumping out at me the way they sometimes do. I want to give a retroactive shout out to our friends, the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp, for having a Mr. Potato Head night last week, where they gave fans actual potatoes and then had body parts, plastic body parts strewn on a table on the concourse to create your DIY Mr. Potato bobbleheads. So nothing quite that creative coming up this week. Here's something I'm intrigued about, and I can't find as of yet, and I should reach out to the team, exactly why this is what they're going with, but Round Rock Express, who, play right outside of Austin, big market. Speaking of big AAA markets like Nashville, Round Rock Express are certainly one of them, but they're playing as the Donuts, the Round Rock Donuts, on July 21st, which according to my records would be, what day is the 21st? That is, I'm all out of whack with time, as many people in the world of baseball are right now. July 21st is, oh, wow, that's coming up.
Yeah.
It's Friday. I knew that all along. They're playing, the Round Rock Express are playing as the Donuts on Friday. And so this is an opportunity for us all to learn. Usually I get on here and I talk like I'm an expert and I know everything. I don't know why the Round Rock Express are going to be the Donuts. Austin, you think of Mexican cuisine, maybe tacos specifically. Donuts, I haven't heard people talk about the donuts of Round Rock or Austin, but there has to be a connection there. So we're going to learn together.
Well, I mean, and I'm sure there's more educational opportunities ahead on this. I just went to roundrockdonuts.com, and on their website, it says, since 1926, people from all over the world have been stopping by to give our famous yellow, or are they orange, ? Donuts a try. Round Rock donuts, made from the original owner's recipe, are created with as much care and finesse as they were years ago. So it just seems to be like a really local staple. It says,
that's great. That's even better, as opposed to it's kind of like a regional specialty like Scrapple. This is like a specific business, perhaps, that they're really paying homage to, and not just Austin, because a lot of time with Round Rock is a pretty big town in and of itself, but Austin kind of dwarfs it. So when you talk about something Round Rock is doing, you just think of it in Austin terms. But maybe this is also really more hyper specific to Round Rock, which is that's a good thing too. We're going to learn this together.
And these are also, they look more like, I would call them munchkins, but they're like donut holes instead of round donuts, or O-shaped donuts, I should say. So I don't know if you're from that area and you know exactly what's special about Round Rock Donuts, hit us up on Twitter. He's on Twitter at Ben's Biz. We'll get more information from this and find out exactly what's going on with the donuts. Maybe we'll have to try them sometime whenever we get down to Round Rock next. But go enjoy your vacation, Ben. Go enjoy the lovely town that is Hadley, Massachusetts, and the seaside scape that is Gloucester. And we'll catch you next week.
Thanks, Sam. Yeah, I'm enjoying it out here. It's very quaint and homey, and I can see how people like yourself just turn out to be such well-rounded and just nice to be around individuals. Just good hearty stock up here. I like all these New Englanders, and specifically those from Massachusetts. And it's good to be around your people.
Well, you're welcome anytime, Ben. We'll catch you next time.
We interrupt this podcast to bring you another thrilling edition of Ghosts of the Miners. Now, here's your correspondent and host, Joshua Jackson.
Welcome back to Ghosts of the Miners, in which all of you out there in Radioland must identify the legitimate historical ball club hiding amidst the fraudulent pair. One now belongs to the ages. The others are yet to find their place in time. In the last segment, I asked you which of the following minor league baseball teams did at one time exist. A, the Bremerton Blue Jackets. B, the Goldsby Yellow Sox. C, the Baton Rouge Red Tops. You'll be cloaked in sadness if you didn't pick A, the Bremerton Blue Jackets. who launched from the Washington town on the Sinclair Inlet in 1946, that post-war year in which Naval Station Bremerton opened to give a home to the Pacific Reserve Fleet. Blue Jacket, of course, is slang for sailor, and our Blue Jackets navigated the wild waters of the Western International League from 1946 till 1949. The Western International League, WIL, was often referred to as the Willie Loop, and the will of the Blue Jackets was fairly strong. They finished their first year in third place, 73 and 63, with banner performances from William Barasoff, who led the league with 40 homers and 133 runs and tied with 155 RBIs, and Clarence Fettermeyer, who won a league-best 21 games on the mound. Those debutante Blue Jackets sailed a little smoother because of the leadership of skipper Sam Gibson. Gibson had been a big leaguer with the Tigers, the Yankees, and the Giants in the late 20s and early 30s before achieving legendary status as an ace of the San Francisco Seals from 34 to 44. He posthumously went into the Pacific Coast League Hall of Fame at the same time as former teammate Joe DiMaggio. But really, the historical significance of the Bremerton Blue Jackets' inaugural season, and arguably their entire existence, is tied to one of the most tragic events in American sporting history. On June 24, the Spokane Indians were making their way across the state for a series at Bremerton when their bus crashed in a horrific accident on a mountain road, plummeting 300 to 500 feet. 8 players were killed instantly, and 1 died days later from injuries sustained in the crash. The driver and 6 other players were also seriously hurt. Miraculously, an infielder named Jack Lorkey had been spared when the bus stopped for food shortly before the accident, and a highway patrolman passed along word that Lorkey had been promoted to the PCL San Diego Padres. Lorkey began hitchhiking back to Spokane. Find much more about his complicated and often bizarre life in an MLB.com story by Michael Clare. Fittingly, after the freak events of 46, the Blue Jackets moved into their strange era, as Alan Inky Strange took over as manager for 47. Ol' Inky worked as a printer in the off-season, so he was in prime position to give the Blue Jackets a little color. A one-time bat boy for the Philadelphia Phillies, an erstwhile infielder for the St. Louis Browns and the Washington Senators, Strange retired as a player after appearing in a handful of PCL games the year before he came to Bremerton. He served 3 seasons as skipper of the Blue Jackets, going on to manage Spokane as well as Seattle's PCL club. But Bremerton came in 3rd place in 47, 2nd place in 48, and finished 8th and finished altogether in 49, as the board of directors acted to move the team to Eugene, Oregon, and principal owner W.W. Shepard insisted his flock could not thrive there. Ultimately, the franchise was replaced by a Tri-City entry. And that's how the Blue Jackets faded to black. Now, on to the question for next time. Which of these teams had lots of experience in the minors of yesteryear? A, the Ocala Old-Timers. B, the Lake Erie Seniors. C, the Dayton Veterans. Want to know the answer? Act your age. Or tune into the next Ghosts of the Minors. But for now, you'll have to excuse me. My producer Ben Hill wants to play pool, and I've got to get him chlorinated.
Final segment of this week's episode of the show before the show. A huge thanks again a little while ago to Buffalo General Manager Anthony Sprague for joining us. Good to hear from Ben, of course, as well in your special segment with our good pal Benjamin Hill. And before we get out of here, MILB.TV is where you can catch all the top talent across minor league baseball. Sam, what do you got this week?
Yeah, so I will, as you just heard me talking to Ben, I will be traveling to Nashville this weekend with our own Kelsey Hennigan for the MLB Pipeline Game of the Month. That will be on Sunday night. Tune into that game. We're going to be doing a lot of cool stuff. I will be in the booth at some point during that game just talking about Brewers prospects, and we'll be doing all sorts of fun stuff around the game. We'll be giving a ballpark tour of First Horizon Park, getting you an up close and personal tour, of course, of that guitar scoreboard. I will be talking to Sal Frelick, one of the top prospects in the Milwaukee Brewers system, about a number of things. We'll be doing that on the MLB Pipeline Instagram page.
Team Italy World Baseball Classic star Sal Frelick, by the way.
That might be coming up. I also will have to break it to him. He went to Boston College. I went to Boston University. I don't know if I want to broach that topic at the start of the interview or
a lot of beanpot conversation.
Yeah, a lot of smack talk. That he played baseball. We don't have a baseball team, so he has one up on me.
So technically, you were undefeated against Sal Frelick during his college career.
Technically true.
So was he.
I'm going to go with that line, but because he's a very good baseball player. But a lot of fun stuff we'll be doing on that. And that will be next week's themed episode of the show before the show. All sorts of interviews, including that one with Sal. And hopefully one with Sound's manager, Rick Sweet, who has been with Nashville for a while, has been managing in the minor leagues. Seems like forever. He's going to have hopefully a lot of good stories to tell. And we'll find some other nooks and crannies of the ballpark, try to bring it to you, a little bit of taste of Nashville on next week's show. So tune in for that. Please watch the game on Sunday. If you're able, or tune into any Nashville matchup against Jacksonville the coming days, but definitely Sunday is the game we'll be blowing up. Tyler, what you got your eye on?
So, Sam, did you know that right now the top 9 prospects, according to the MLB Pipeline top 100 prospects list, are all in AA? Did you know that?
I did. It's kind of crazy because normally we don't, I don't say we prefer, but it's easier to make a case in the top 10 for guys who have upper level experience. So guys who have been in the major leagues or in AAA. And the way we've just kind of had graduations, Ellie De La Cruz being the latest one, those types have just kind of fallen off. And now we're getting guys who are just reaching AA, like the top prospect in baseball, who is who, Tyler?
Top prospect in baseball is one Jackson Holliday. And Jackson Holliday and his team, the AA Bowie Bay Sox, will be taking on baseball's number 4 overall prospect, Washington Nationals outfielder James Wood, and the Harrisburg Senators. So you can watch the number 1 and number 4 prospects in baseball square off this week on MILB.TV as O's and Nats prospects battle it out. The Battle of the Beltway. I don't know. Is that I'm sure that's a term.
I don't know
I don't think they've used that term.
Yeah. I also don't know how Harrisburg, Pennsylvania feels like being
That's
part
true.
of the Beltway.
Well, but the parent clubs.
Yes, no, the parent clubs.
Oh, by the way, the Beltway series promoted by the teams as the Battle of the Beltways is the Major League Baseball interleague rivalry series played between the Baltimore Orioles and Washington Nationals, according to Wikipedia.
So there you go.
So there we go. I would have figured it was something where it was like, oh no, it's Georgetown basketball against James
Madison.
Madison. Is James Madison even? I don't even know if it's on a beltway. I don't know what the beltways really are. I know they're highways.
Georgetown versus American. Do they play in basketball?
Yeah,
American's
exactly.
a school in DC.
George Mason, maybe. I know George
Mason,
Mason's out there. James Madison's in Virginia, right?
Yes.
I'm gonna stop talking before I put my foot in my mouth.
I'll just add this.
College locations.
Harrisburg also added Brady House this week. They got him out of Wilmington real quick, and they've been pretty upfront about that. Wilmington is an extreme pitcher's park. It can be difficult to show your power there, and that's Brady House's
graveyard.
Yeah, number 1 skill is his ability to drive the ball. So getting him up to AA in a little bit more of a fair environment, and getting him in that lineup alongside James Wood and alongside Robert Hassel III. If you're a Nats fan, that's a great opportunity to get an up close view of your future.
What's kind of funny too is they had to rush Brady House out of Wilmington because it's such a pitcher's park. Brady House was hitting 317, 368, 540 in Wilmington. So he's doing okay.
Yeah.
Even despite the park working against him.
I mean, honestly, I think that's part of the reason why they pulled the parachute was if he's doing well now, let's just get him out of there before it goes south. Yeah,
exactly. Get him up. Let him have that confidence of having succeeded in a difficult hitter's environment. It's pretty cool stuff. And that'll do it for this week's episode of the show before the show. Huge thanks to everybody that stopped by. And for Sam Dykstra, Benjamin Hill, Josh Jackson, and all the rest, my name is Tyler Maughan. We'll talk to you next week.